off maybe with a little bit of a little bit about the observance coming at the end of this week. So today is the 6th of Tevet, which makes Friday the 10th of Tevet. So Friday is one of the 4 fast days, the 4 fast days that surround the destruction of the temple. In this one, the official reason for the fast is the siege upon Jerusalem. However, there are 2 other events which take place at the same time. One is the translation of the Septuagint, which is sort of an interesting thing because that is the first time the Torah is translated into a foreign language. It's translated into Greek to be part of the great Library of Alexandria under Ptolemy, and there's even a very brilliant miracle that happens around it. And that miracle is the miracle of put 70 rabbis in 70 different rooms, right? You know the idea, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Well, if there are 70 rabbis who all produce the same translation of the Torah at the same time, then we would say, wow, hey, that's a big miracle. That sounds better. If you ask me, that's a bigger one than Hanukkah, right? 70 rabbis agreeing is better than some light lasting, 7 days longer than expected. That I would say hands down. So why is that a tragedy? It's a tragedy on 2 fronts. Number one is once you put the Torah in translation, you are diminishing the Torah. There are many, many valences, there are many, many layers of meaning in Hebrew that do not exist in Greek. And so once you put the Torah into Greek, you are certainly diminishing it. The second reason is that the Talmud records 18 different changes that they made in order to, so to speak, keep the either the non-Jews from rebelling or from persecuting us, or another version of the same is that they didn't want to create misapprehension. So one of the classic ones is, there are 2 at the very beginning. Instead of saying Bereshit bara Elokim, Bereshit bara Elokim would strictly translate into in the beginning. Bara, Bereshit means in the beginning. Bara was created. Elokim, God. So we translate that in the beginning God created. What the rabbis were afraid of is that because the word bara, created, can be a transitive verb, it would sound like Bereshit created Elokim. That is not a good look for us Jews. And so they reworked the beginning of the Torah just to avoid that confusion. And then there's another, as the Torah goes on, it says, Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu, which is translated, at least in English, as let us make man. Now, the rabbis deliberately removed the plural. Rashi's interpretation of that is that is written so that God can teach us derech eretz, teach us manners, that we should ask permission. That God asked permission of the angels before he created the world. And so that was another one of those things. So there's a tradition that this fast day of the 10th of Tevet also commemorates the translation of the Torah, the necessary, or what is ultimately the diminishment of the Torah through translation. But then there was this third event. The third event is actually critical to the subject at hand, and that is the death of Ezra the scribe. So Ezra plays a role far beyond what I think most of us appreciate. The Torah was originally written in Tav Ivri, which is Paleo-Hebrew, which I will venture to say even Annie Sorno can't read. So I think I've tried it on her, right? If you look at for things like, for example, the seal of King Chizkiyahu. Seal of King Chizkiyahu is not easily read by modern Hebrew readers. Fundamentally it's a different font, and Ezra transposed the Torah into what's called Ktav Ashuri, Assyrian script, which is what we all read today. That is what it's been written in. Now, And Ezra's, I would say one of the things that Ezra did, which is he set up this system of Torah reading, and he had the Torah read by the Watergate, which is essentially the public square. He was the one who took the Torah to the people. It was, in a way, it's a way of saying that the Torah wasn't in the temple. It went to Pacific Center. It went to the place where people would gather. And the institution of Torah reading is very much an institution about the idea that of where the Torah is meant to be, and it needs to be accessed by people. Now, one of the things that Ezra started was this idea of the Hagbah, that people actually had to see the letters of the Torah. Now, I want to also just show you the way that we have the Torah today. Here. The way they have the Torah today is, see if I can make this big enough to see well. Okay. I just want to share my screen to those who are on Zoom. Give me 1 second to set everything up properly.
Meanwhile, mask something?
I would prefer if you hold your question for a minute, because I want to make a point and not lose my mind, and then I will happily. Okay. So this is a picture of the Aleppo Codex from Parshat Vizot HaBracha. Now, this looks a little bit like a Torah scroll, but it is not the same as a Torah scroll. This is produced by the Ben Amram. These types of scrolls were produced in Tveria, in Tiberias, by the Ben Amram family. And there's certain parts of this which are very critical to the way in which we read the Torah. First of all, Hebrew, as it was, I think, given to Moses, did not have these little dots here and there. In the same way that, I don't know, has anyone ever seen those funny skits of Gallagher? I mean, he's a comic in the 70s, where he's like, he goes through like the way in which certain English words are, and the pronunciations and the way things should be pronounced, and you kind of realize how hard it must be to learn English, because the way things are, you put a couple of the right letters together and you get totally different pronunciations. Well, people tend to actually have recognition of words, and to this day, most Israelis do not read with nikudot. If you take a modern Hebrew book, you will see that it really doesn't have vowels. Occasionally, they will put a vowel in here or there to distinguish one word from another. But I would say one in 1,000 words might have those dots. But if I pick up a modern Hebrew book, here, do me a favor, and pull the volume of the Talmud off the shelf there. That right there, the brown, right exactly there. Yeah, just pull that off. Now you open it up. For those who are here in the room, they'll see here. You're not going to find a dot on the page, right? That is how Hebrew was written. Now that Hebrew was written probably 200 years ago, right? For 200 years, there's not a dot on that page. But when it comes to the reading of the Torah, we are not going to allow ourselves to mispronounce even a single word. And so the Torah came to have a set of markings in it, nukudot, that would help us with the vocalization. It goes even further than that, though. And I'll demonstrate why you need this with the following skit from Sesame Street. It is a skit that I tell people about often because it's about how you, it depends on how you say a sentence. So there is Big Bird fishing in a pond. And Kermit comes up to Big Bird and says, Big Bird, can't you read the sign? And Big Bird says, what do you mean? And Kermit says, the sign says, keep out, no fishing allowed. And Big Bird says, no, that's not how you read the sign. It says, keep out, no fishing allowed, right? So these are obviously very important differences in the way you're going to read. So the Torah, the Masoretes, as they were called, these were the rabbis in the 7th, 8th, 9th centuries who created these codices that tell us how to do this. They created a set of signs. So I'm going to try and use the annotation tool here to show you some of the signs. But this sign, this little L sign right here, that is a munach, right? And trying to read carefully. Okay, this wishbone over here is called an etnachta. The etnachta is the comma in the middle of the sentence. That tells you to pause. Sometimes you're going to see two commas. They look like two mirror image commas. That's called a merchati b'cha. What these do is they tell you which phrases to pair together, how to put the pauses within the sentence. And so there is a set of cantillations which are to be found. We've all of the printed Tanakhs, they're also found in these codices, and they tell us how it actually, they're used as a set of singing indications, but they, at the same time, what they do is they show you how to break up the Torah. And we try to be very, very careful about making sure that the Torah is both sung correctly, meaning that its phraseology is correct, and that its pronunciation is correct. Generally speaking, we correct a Balkore, we correct the Torah reader for mistakes in pronunciation, and we don't correct for mistakes in the song or the tune, except for two things. Those two things are this wishbone right here. It's called the etnachta. You have to hit that. You have to know where the pause in the middle of the sentence is. And also the sof pasuk. The sof pasuk is the end of the sentence. And that is, by the way, interestingly indicated by these two dots, the colon, right? That is the sign for the end of a sentence. This is a unique, well, you know, I'm not going to get into too much directions on this, but one of the other things that these cantillations do is they tell you where to put, onto which syllable to put the emphasis. So just we'll pick this one right here. This is called the Zakef Gadol. Actually, let me clear my drawings. Okay, so this particular one right here, I'm going to circle it very small. That's called the Zakef Gadol. So this word is mi yamino, which means from his right hand. Now, it could be sung mi yamino, right? Where the emphasis is on the second mem. But because the cantillation is on top of the nun, it is mi yamino.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So that tells you exactly where you're going to put the emphasis, onto which syllable, so to speak, you're going to put the emphasis. So I'm just giving you this as a way of understanding, you know, what the evolution, if you will, of Torah and Torah reading. How do we know what to say? How do we know how to sing? It all comes from this particular place in these codices, which represent the distilled wisdom of many, many generations of scholarship to be able to make sure that that is correct.